analyze the existing literature in order to identify and highlight a gap in the literature. In addition to that, Madam has explained beautifully the theoretical framework. The theoretical framework is the research component that introduces and discusses the theory that explains why the research problem under study exists. It is also the conceptual and analytical approach the researcher is going to take to fill the research gap identified by the literature review. Moreover, it is the structure that holds the structure of the research theory. The main difference between literature review and theoretical framework is their function. The literature review explores what has already been written about the topic under study in order to highlight a gap, whereas theoretical framework is the conceptual and analytical approach the researcher is going to take to fill that gap. Literature review and the theoretical framework are two indispensable components of research. Both are equally important for the foundation of a research study. This is what the wonderful session which is given by Dr. Triveni yesterday. Today, we have a great and eminent personality from Kuwempu University, Dr. Manjunath K.R. So I would like to request Dr. Jonathan sir to introduce today's resource person. Over to Dr. Jonathan sir.
Thank you, Professor S.R. Vishwanath. Good evening to one and all present here. Friends, today we are in the third session of the ongoing 5-day national level FDP titled Research Journey and IPR. As part of it, today's discourse is on statistical tools for data analysis, which will be conducted in a few minutes by Dr. Manjunath K.R. Indeed, I am happy and honored to introduce Dr. Manjunath K.R. briefly. He is an MBA and PhD holder, and right now he is serving as Associate Professor of Management in Kuwempu University, Karnataka. Let us see his career graph. He started his career as Accounts Management Analyst, and later on, he went on to teaching at MLA College for Higher Learning, Bengaluru, and a rating analyst at Reuters International Private Limited. And he also worked as visiting faculty at a very famous college from Bengaluru, that is Jyoti Nivas College. And presently, he is serving as Associate Professor of Management, the Department of Management, Kuwempu University. So his research experience goes like this. He has published 41 papers in national and international journals. He has authored a few books, and he has produced study materials on more than 10 subjects. And total, to put it in, he has got to his credit 60 national, international workshops as a resource person, as keynote speaker, and as chairperson. That's how he has got 60 papers to his credit. Under his guidance, 4 research scholars have been awarded PhD, and remaining 3 are pursuing under his guidance. He has finished 4 minor research projects, and his outreach activities are like this. He is a member, Board of Studies, Board of Examiners, and other academic bodies of various universities in Karnataka. Member of All India Accounting Association. He conducted more than 100 training and capacity building programs at level like ranging from regional, state level, and national level for educational institutions, professional groups, society, and corporate houses. Added to that, he also worked as placement officer, coordinator for training and counseling cell, nodal officer of CMKY and PMKY projects, NSSG PG officer, and coordinator ECE. And he has also worked as consultant for a few companies as far as training and development is concerned. He has got special skills. He has got special skills. First one is statistical analysis. And today he is going to talk about, as a part of it, statistical tools also, designing research tools, skill training, capacity building, and added to that, not only academics, even non-academics also, or extracurricular activities like civil defense, first aid, martial arts, and more. So in other words, Dr. Manjunath K.R. is a multifaceted personality. So I thank the organizers for having given me an opportunity to introduce such a great personality. Sir, I would like to welcome, and now over to you, sir.
Sir, thank you very much for your wonderful introduction, sir. Thank you. Sir, shall we get started, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. So I extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Vishwanath and Janardhanam, sir, who beautifully introduced me and given me this opportunity. So this has been a long time or an extended deliberation to have some introduction or have a discussion with all the participants from academical research and other backgrounds. I thank for this opportunity, sir. Today, we're going to be looking into a few perspectives of statistical analysis, which is one of the fundamental elements when it comes to research. Because whenever you're going to be starting your research, okay, every research starts with a particular defined purpose. And we are going to be coming out with a lot of arguments and deliberations, discussions, and we are required to justify our claims, whatever we're going to be making research, and how we are going to be statistically providing amplified, because a logical evidence for people what India is be people would say economical risk is all, but am I audible, sir?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, because I think there's some technical issue. All right. So we are going to say that India is exposed to an economic risk. What do you refer when you speak about the economic risk? Are you speaking about the productivity here? Are you speaking about the level of employment here? Are you speaking about the balance of payment here, balance of trade here? What are we trying to refer to? You may say that okay, Indian stock market is in crisis. Say, stock on the screen has seen a reduction. The people would say like, oh, their prices. That means I have a share of 200 rupees. That 200 rupees value has come down by 12%. It means 24 rupees. I have lost this 24 rupees because of the reduction in the stock price. So this provides a transparency to my statement whenever I'm saying that the Indian stock market is in crisis. Then you say that today you see suddenly you say like the Sensex has gained a significant growth, right? Okay, you say like the Sensex has seen a significant growth, but by what extent? People say like if you say that the Sensex has increased by 150 points, and previously the stock market indices was 30,000, and this 30,000 has increased by 150 points. You say that okay, you're going to be calculating it. You say like it has increased by 0.05%. or 0.5%. Okay. So this statistics plays a very, very significant role in providing amplifications or evidences for the statements, whatever we are making. So statistics becomes an integral part of our research, our decision making, right? Because you say like, okay, any decisions can be taken. A company may say that we are looking for expansion of our business, right? You say like, okay, why exactly the company is looking for expansion in their business? You say like, company is looking for expansion in business because we have seen a growth in sales by 15%. That means to say that if the company, if the organization in the previous year had a reported sales of 1 lakh units, you say that with this 1 lakh units has increased by 1,15,000 units, and this 1,15,000 increase in the quantum of sales is providing an increase in profits by a particular percentage. And this is symbolically exhibiting to you that there is a very good opportunity for the business to expand, right? Because any decisions, until unless it is supported by numbers, it does not have any such kind of a relevance. So hence, my friends, they say that statistics, similarly in research, also has a very, very important place or important role to play. But recently, of late, okay, we see that okay, whatever we are experiencing in the research curriculum, that okay, whatever we are seeing in terms of the papers, whatever is going to be presented at the conferences, or the research reports, what comes for adjudication to in our hands, or our own students, okay, or our fellow research scholars in the university, whenever they are presenting their research findings, and we see that they are presenting the research findings, but most of the time, what they are trying to present, or whatever the evidences, whatever they are trying to present, it is not going to be substantially supported by the appropriate statistical tools. Hence, it becomes very important for us to choose the right statistical tools for our research. Okay, how we go about doing it over the next 50-55 minutes of time, we're going to be looking into it. I wish that I can have a discussion with you for 40 to 45 minutes of time. Then we can also have a 5 or 10 minutes of discussion. We always say research is always a purposive activity. So like when you speak about a purposive activity, we are referring to the objective. What is the objective of research? What is the purpose of research? What are we trying to offer or suggest through this research? Because I was actually participating in the day one, what Dr. Swapna madam was taking your session through on transformational research, right? So when you speak about this, okay, I was just going through that. Okay, she was trying to tell that, okay, what exactly is the purpose of this transformational research, how the research should be societal oriented, what exactly is the relevance, okay, we speak about the research relevance, what a researcher is trying to do through this research, what is he trying to offer through this research.
Manjunath sir, sorry for disturbance. Can you put it in the slide mode, sir? Thank you, sir.
Okay, now it's clear, sir? So is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's clear. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You can carry on, sir, please.
Okay, sir. Right, sir. We said like a research should always be a purposive activity. A research should always have a specific objective. All right. So when you speak about a research topic is split into different objectives. Like, for example, I'm interested to study the satisfaction of a person towards a particular project, or I'm interested to study how the policy initiative taken up by the government is going to be having an impact on the societal well-being. Right. We'll just take a particular example which has to do with all of us. We speak about the national education policy. When you say like a national education policy, and we are trying to see like, okay, how this national education policy is going to be having an impact on the pedagogy or the methodology, what we are going to be using, how this national education policy is going to be providing for better learning opportunity to the students, how this new education policy is going to be having an impact on the learning process of the student, how this new national education policy would increase the employability of the student. So these are different perspectives. When you speak about a particular aspect or a concept, there are different attributes which is associated with it, and we are trying to evaluate the particular subject matter in terms of the attributes which are associated with it, so that can be tested and validated, because based on the objectives, we are going to be identifying the variables in research. Because when you say that what is measured in research, we always say like variables are measured in research, because that is the basic of the car. Are you going to be measuring in terms of serviceability of the car? Are you going to be measuring it in terms of the price? Are you going to be measuring it in terms of the free attributes that are going to be attached to it? How are you going to be studying the attributes of this particular phenomenon? Right? You say that you visited a particular restaurant and you are required to study what was the experience of the individuals who visited this restaurant and how they appreciated, right? So this is going to be calling a need for developing the basis for measurement, right? How are you going to be developing the measures? How are you going to be measuring it? Because these measurements are going to be considered to be the quantifiable aspects, okay, because we need to see whether these measurements are quantifiable in nature. Right. So there are two things that we are going to be looking at, right? One is a subjective evaluation, the other one is objective evaluation. Now, my friends, for us to look for a statistical analysis, okay, I think like, okay, I'm also going to be can everyone look at this Excel sheet? So this Excel sheet is visible, sir?
No, sir, Excel sheet, no.
Okay, I think like, okay, I'm not able to share the entire document. Now it's clear, sir?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay. So now I would say that I'm interested to study the satisfaction of a customer towards purchase of chocolate. Okay. Or right, we are referring to car. Okay, we'll just take the car. Right. How are you going to be studying the satisfaction of the customer towards purchase of a car, like, or post purchase of car, right? Are you going to be referring in terms of serviceability? Are you going to be referring that in terms of access to additional accessories, performance on the road, mileage, price? Okay, so we're going to be identifying them. Okay, these are called as attributes. Okay. So we are interested to study these attributes in terms of different satisfaction levels that an individual has. How are you going to be trying to measure it? Right? Are you going to be measuring the serviceability of the car in terms of the period, regularity, free service, paid service, economical service, right? Access to the additional accessories. Is it at the stores, in the same vicinity of the place? Or what are we trying to evaluate, right? So we'll come back. We'll come back to that. Okay. So we say that, okay, we are trying to evaluate, okay, what we speak about the opinion of the people, because most of the time these opinions of the people become very, very subjective in nature, because we say like, okay, that is dependent on personal feelings, taste, right? Preferences of the individuals and so on, right? Because we say that, okay, when you are going to be looking at a statistical analysis, there are two aspects that we look at. One is we speak about the quantitative data, other one is the qualitative data. Most of the social science researchers, we depend on qualitative data, because whenever we are going for questionnaires, and we are going to be developing a questionnaire which is going to be having a big list of questions, and these questions are going to be provided with some scales or some options that may be multiple choice, multiple response, multiple choice, single response, Likert type scales, semantic differential scales, right? So we may use different types of scaling techniques, and we go and give a questionnaire. And these questionnaires are subjective statements that are put across to the respondents or the target groups. And these target groups are going to be providing their responses. Are they just going to be giving they're going to be unchecking the big list of checklists that we're going to be providing to them. All right. So how are they going to be appreciating those questions or responses? It may be about a human resource policy. It may be about a banking policy. It may be about a political policy. It may be about any experiences. It may be about an opinion about a phenomenon or a situation. It may be about many, many aspects, right? So whenever you're going to be giving a questionnaire to the people, that how they are going to be giving those responses, because I hope that, again, there was a few things that were discussed even in the previous session, right? When we speak about the literature review, when we are going to be reading through the literature, we are trying to identify what are those variables which are tested by the researcher, how those variables are tested and evaluated, and what are the norms on which some inferences are drawn, and how these inferences are provided with subjective evidences or our arguments. So, my friends, okay, it becomes very important for us to find out or identify the variables, and at the same time also try to identify the attributes, because once we are going to be providing this questionnaires, then we are going to be given with a set of data, right? So we're going to be having a data. We say like a data is a crude form of information, and what these information are it in terms of numerical numbers, or are we going to be converting those numbers into numerical facts? Because statistics primarily aims at compilation of numerical numbers, converting them into measurable facts, and these measurable facts are further validated, and based on these validations, okay, we're going to be coming out with our inferences. Okay. And what is this objectivity versus subjectivity? I've just taken a very simple example. Objectivity is, you say like, it is raining. Subjective way of evaluating it, okay, you say that, okay, I love rain, I do not like rain, right? So because the subjectivity as subjective aspects is conditioned based on personal or mental characteristics or states, whereas Objective phenomena are based on particular standards. Okay, we're going to be taking particular standards and then we're going to be coming out with our evaluations. Right? So then we have some scales. Okay, I think we are not going to be discussing more on this scaling. Like we have this nominal scales, then we have ordinal scales, right? Then we have interval scales, and then we have ratio scales. Okay, so these scales are going to be helping us to compile the required information from a particular sample group, right? I'm going to be focusing more on these elements, right? Okay, when you are going to be looking at the data, it is very important for us to understand the data characteristics, because until unless we identify and study the data characteristics, it becomes very difficult for us to find out, okay, what is going to be the most appropriate statistical tool that we need to be using for our research. All right. So before going for a data collection, we need to understand these three factors. One is the universe. When you speak about universe, is sum total of associated factors to a particular phenomenon, right? And this universe may have finite characteristics or it may have infinite characteristics. Finite characteristics where you have a specifically defined numbers, like for example, you say number of registered MSMEs on GEM portal, number of registered travel service providers, number of 7-star hotels operating in the country. You say that, okay, you have a defined factors or defined numbers where you say that there is the universe is finite in nature. Infinite is where, like, okay, you are not in a position to precisely identify the total number of factors which are associated to a particular phenomenon, right? Especially you say that, okay, the unorganized segment in the economic system, because we do not know, like, okay, who all are the people who are associated in the universe. Like for example, we were taking up, okay, I'll just take my own scholar's example. Okay, I had a Yemeni scholar who was interested to study on how the contemporary management practices can provide for resurgence in MSME sector in Yemen, right? We say like the number of MSME sectors which are operating in Yemen are ill-defined, because you are not in a position to identify the total number of MSMEs which are operating in Yemen, because either because of the political factors, or the policy factors, or the kind of the social environment which is prevailing there, right? So the researcher primarily will have to identify the data or the source from which I'm going to be raising my or compiling my information from. Is it a finite group or infinite group? This is first, right? Because most of the time you say, my friends, universe is most of the time is ill-defined. Now, then you speak about the population. The population is always finite because it is always a defined characteristics. Now, I need to define what exactly is the nature of information that I'm going to be compiling from. Who are the people who are going to be qualifying themselves to become a part of my study, right? Universe may be infinite and ill-defined, but population necessarily has to be defined. But only thing is whether you are in a position to identify and qualify all the attributes which are associated with it or not. That's a big question that we need to ask for ourselves. But yet, we are trying to define the characteristics, what I am trying to study, right? If I'm going to be interested to study about the technology in banking, what exactly are the elements that I'm trying to study about technology in banking? If I'm going to be interested to study, can the EV vehicles be a substitution to the diesel or the petrol vehicles run on the road, right? So in that case, okay, I need to say like, okay, what exactly are the EV vehicles? Right. Okay, what EV vehicles I am targeting? Who are the people whom I am going to be targeting? Am I going to be targeting the individuals? Am I going to be targeting to the organization? Am I going to be targeting the transport agencies which are operating? Or I'm going to be targeting the government? Whom I'm going to be targeting? Specifically, I define the characteristics and then I say what exactly are the factors that I need to be qualifying and what I'm interested to study. Okay, and you see that the population most of the time is very, very large until unless you have a defined set of population. You say like N, right? N, if you say like N is relatively very, very large, then you go for sample. We say like sample where population is a subset of universe, sample is subset of population. Sample is a finite and a small group of representation from the population, and we are assuming that population represents all the characteristics of the universe. Right? I want all of you to just take a very, very important note of these aspects, because I'm going to be telling you a little bit time from now what is that we are trying to test in using this statistics. All right? We say like sample is a subset of population, and we are assuming that the population is representing all the characteristics of the universe. Because whenever I'm going to be coming out with my argument or my judgment, I'm telling to the people, I'm communicating through my research that there is a particular phenomenon which exists like this, and this particular phenomenon has an impact on the society like this, and hence some corrective measures are to be initiated. Right? And whether these suggestions, okay, whatever you're going to be providing, is it generic? Right? And do you think that okay, there is a sizable representation of the society which has become a part of your study, and then you're going to be coming out with your judgments and telling people that okay, yes, I wish that okay, we are going to be accepting these facts because I have taken a fair representation of the universal characteristics. Right? You say that national education policy is a good initiative because it is enhancing the quality and the employability of the students. What did you study? Did you take the sample of only one college? Did you take the sample of one technical group? Did you take an example of one particular state, one district, one country? And if you say like, okay, most of the time people are going to be titling their research like this. It's like a study, okay, a study from India, a study from Asia Pacific region, a study from Karnataka. Right? So even when they are taking the case studies also, but they are not in a position to identify. Are they really representing the entire characteristics of the universe, and then they're going to be coming down to the samples? Because one, I said like, okay, always we need to be identifying the variables for research, what has to be tested in research, how it has to be measured, and from whom it has to be collected, from how many people the data has to be collected, whether the data is a fair representation of the population and the universe. This is what is very, very important that has to be taken into consideration, my friends. Right. Then you say like, okay, we are going to be speaking about a universe. Right? Universe, we say like a universe may be relatively very, very large. Right? And then you say like a population. Population is represented by okay. You take the population. Population is characterized with these factors. We say like mu, standard deviation, and n. N is the total number of representation in this particular population. And mu, right? Okay, this mu represents the population mean. This speaks about the characteristics, right? Okay, we speak about measures of central tendency. This is a positional value, right? And toward how exactly the individual observations are deviating from the mu factor. We speak about the population here. Okay. So just for our understanding, okay, we'll just take this particular Excel sheet. All right. I'll just increase the font size, my friends, here. All right. I'll just take a very simple sample data for you. Like, for example, okay, I'm going to be looking at how the automobile industry is functioning, how the entire automobile industry is performing in Karnataka, right? So here, as I said, like I'm going to be defining the population characteristics, mind you, right? Okay, what exactly are the population characteristics I'm defining here? I'm going to say that which exactly are the organizational companies which qualifies themselves to become a part of my study. I say any car which is in the price range of 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, right? Then I'm going to be identifying the names of the brands. I select Tata, I say Toyota, I take Maruti, I take Renault, right? Then I take Skoda, right? Fine. So then there will be n number of other brands as well. Like I'm interested to take only these 5 companies, right? The question may arise is like, how did you qualify them? I would just give some particular parameters. I would say that these are the top 5 sellers in the market. These are the companies which has reported a sales of more than 25,000 units in the last quarter. Or these are the companies which have been cited in the top automobile industries in the Asia Pacific region. Any parameter may be there, right? I'm going to be taking them. Then I call this as population, right? And then I say that I'm going to be telling that they are going to be in terms of sales in lakhs of rupees, 2,500, 2,600, 1,800, 2,800, and 1,600. All right. So we're going to be taking these numbers, and then we are trying to evaluate how this particular sales have been, right? So we say that again, there are 2,500, 2,600, 1,800, 2,800, and 1,600. I will take the total of this. I'll divide this by 5. 2,200 happens to be the average sales of in Karnataka, right? And then I'm interested to evaluate how this particular sales have deviated from the average sales reported by the automobile sector. What I'm trying to evaluate? I'm going to be trying to evaluate whether these performances on an average, I'm telling that 2,260 is the average sales of automobiles in Karnataka. How these individual performances have deviated from it. Okay. We go for formula. More functions, statistical functions. I go for standard deviation. (527) happens to be the standard deviation. Now, with a mean of standard deviation 2,260 and standard deviation of 527, it tells you that what is standard deviation? We say like sum of the squared root deviations taken from mean. Okay, so this can be used for further statistical iterations. But what are we trying to evaluate? Now, if I say that I am trying to make an evaluation between Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Kerala, right? So we are trying to make a comparative evaluation of the performances at a particular state with other states. Okay, so then, okay, we'll further come with that. Okay, so I'm interested to see whether the population characteristics, okay, whatever I'm trying to study here, right, is it something which has to do with a universal phenomenon? Now you say that the automobile industry's average sales is 2,260 in Karnataka. Can I say that the average sales of automobile sector in India is 2,260? Right. So if I say that there is a consistency in terms of these two numbers, then I can come out with my argument telling that the sales in Karnataka is as similar to that of the sales in India. Just where like, okay, hypothesis testing comes into picture, right? Now, what is hypothesis? We say like hypothesis is an assumed statement of fact. It's an assumed solution to the problem, right? So we are interested to make a study, we are interested to make an evaluation whether the automobile sales in Karnataka, is it as good as automobile sales in India? Right. So automobile sales in India, if I'm going to be representing that as mu, and if I'm going to be representing the sample as mean or X bar, we call it as X bar, right? So can I say like mu is equal to X bar? Mean is equal to mean of the population is equal to mean of the sample, right? So for which I'm required to have a data of both Karnataka as well as India. Do I have the information pertaining to the population? Do I have the information regarding the because I said like, okay, universal characteristics, most of the time, okay, when you speak about a car, you may have a data. When you speak about an unorganized case, people who are selling chocolates, you may have some issues. People who are selling sweets, you may have issues. People who are selling garments, you may have issues. People who are driving two-wheelers on the road, people who are driving cars on the road, people who are providing transportation services, people who are driving auto rickshaws, right? You say like, okay, I'm interested to study the people's attitude towards traveling in public transport using example of Ola, example of Uber, right? But when it comes to studying the people's satisfaction towards using auto rickshaws on the Karnataka or Bangalore roads, you may have a question in mind like, okay, how I can study that, because where exactly, how many people are, right? You may get a data regarding the people who are registered with Ola, people who are registered with other service providers, but you may not have a data regarding people who are driving auto rickshaws on the road. It's like, okay, infinite universal characteristics. But when you are required to make a study, when you are trying to make an evaluation of the people's expectation or their experience regarding traveling in auto rickshaws on Indian roads, whether the experiences of the people in Bangalore is that similar to that of people who are in Shimoga, people who are that in Mysore, right? You are trying to make an evaluation, comparative evaluation of two groups. Right. So that is where two sample study comes into picture. Right. So regarding few of right again. So when you are required to identify, first thing is, my friends, okay, you are required to identify what exactly has to be studied. Right. If I'm going to be taking a particular aspect, there are a lot of statistical tools for research. Okay, one You say like statistical tools, we say like measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, measures of comparison, measures of correlation, regression, right? So we have different set of statistical tools. What is required? What is very appropriate for the research, whatever I am pursuing? This is one very big question that comes into our mind, right? So how to identify the appropriate statistics? How to evaluate them, right? So first is, as I said, like, okay, you need to you need to know what are the universal characteristics. Second, you need to know what exactly are the population characteristics. And then you should look at the third aspect, that is samples, right? What are these samples? How are these samples? Whether these samples are representing the population characteristics or what, right? So we are going to be testing them, right? I think like, okay, there's no need for me to speak about the fundamental elements regarding what is mean, median, mode, correlation, regression, these aspects, right? Because when you say, like, for example, what is the difference between studying a correlation factor and a regression factor, right? Because most of the time, most of us fail to identify what are we trying to study here, okay? I'll just give you an example. I'm trying to evaluate how a team performance is influencing the performance of team A is influencing the performance of team B, right? What we are required to study? Are we trying to study the associations here? Are we trying to study the relationships here? Are we trying to study the variances here? What are we trying to study? Right, this is the first question that we need to ask for ourselves, right? Say, for example, if I'm going to be taking, okay, again, I need to just keep switching the screens, right? So I will take again this same example here. Now, I'll just replace this. Advertising budget and sales 23,000. Everything is in lakhs of rupees. 32,000, 20,000, 18,000, and 22,000. Okay. Right. I think like the Excel sheet was not shared. I'm sorry. Okay. So we are trying to evaluate the relationship between these two aspects. Right. So friends, okay, anybody can unmute and tell me that, okay, what are we trying to study here? Okay, you have been given the data of advertising budget here and the sales here. These two data is given to you. What are we trying? What are the different aspects that we can study out of this? Okay, we even take this company's data also out. Okay, I'll just take January, Feb, March, April, and May. Any participants? Okay, again, just please share your.
Yes. So there is a yes from Sahana. She is telling that regression analysis can be done on variables, whatever may be you are presenting.
Regression analysis.
Correlation, but
right.
Relationship.
No, you say like, okay, the advertising budget is given to you, and you speak about, okay, your sales data is given to you. What are we trying to study here? There are different ways in which the numbers can be approached, because there is no particular standard, my friends. I'll tell you that there is no individual standard rule that is rule of thumb that has to be applied, that, okay, you look at the number and, okay, you need to be applying only this tool only, because it is all about researchers' requirement. As I said, like, okay, the data, whatever you're going to be having on hand, you should make a rational judgment regarding what is that, okay, I'm trying to study here. First question that you need to ask for yourself, what is that I'm trying to study here? Am I trying to study the association of the relationship between the advertisement budget and sales here? Or am I trying to study how the rate of change in budget has impacted the rate of change in sales? Or am I trying to study the relationship in terms of the correlation between the advertising budget and sales? What is that again we are trying to study? Right? Or I would say that, okay, I'm going to be increasing everything by single number here. 26,000, 18,000, 28,000, and 16,000. I'll just replace this by Delhi and Mumbai. Okay. Now what difference do you see here? What is that, okay, you can study here? You can study the consistency in terms of performance. You can calculate the mean of this. You can calculate the standard deviation of it. Then you can apply the coefficient of variation here. Then you say whether the sales in terms of the last 5 months in terms of Delhi and Mumbai, which state is more consistent in its performance? You say that I'm trying to see whether the sales in Delhi has any impact on the sales in Mumbai. Right? I can even do a correlation of, I'll say, like, I'll consider this as X, I'll consider this as Y. But when you are like, okay, one of the person has rightly said, I'm interested to study, when I say like advertising budget and the sales, I'm going to be saying how the rate of change in advertising budget has impacted the rate of change in sales. Then regression becomes very, very appropriate. Okay. So we say statistics is all about accumulation of numerical facts, which is used for further statistical manipulation. We can go on doing a lot of statistical manipulations based on the numbers, whatever we have, right? Based on that, okay, we are trying to evaluate like how these particular numbers can be used. For example, I say that I'll change this again, firm A and firm B. Okay. So when you say like a firm A and firm B, firm A's production is given here, firm B's production is given here. You see that there is a deviations experienced between firm A and firm B. But the normal assumption that is going to be underlying here is that firm A's performance is as similar to that of firm B. This is a hypothesis we set, right? And when you are going to be setting up these hypotheses, we are required to evaluate whether the deviation what is observed here between firm A and firm B, is it statistically significant or not? Has it occurred only due to a chance, or are there any significant factors which are influencing it? Right. We're going to be using a hypothesis study, right? Okay, we don't have much time. Okay, I'm just giving you a few glimpses, like, okay, how we do iteration here, right? We are going to be doing, we're going to be using a lot of parametric and non-parametric tools for hypothesis testing, right? Because based on how we are going to be selecting the hypothesis and non-hypothesis, we speak about parametric and non-parametric tools for statistical analysis, is based on what exactly is the nature of data we have, what exactly are the parameters that are made available. Okay, do we have the details regarding the population mean? Do we have the sample mean? Do we have the standard deviation of it? Do we have the absolute numbers? Right. Based on that, okay, we are going to, and what is going to be the nature of the data, how it is distributed, whether it is normally distributed, whether it has any kind of a skewness in its data. Because whenever you say that when the data is skewed, right, and you say that, okay, we can use only non-parametric statistical tools for analysis. but whatever it is, we always start with a fundamental assumption on which, like, okay, our analysis should be based. Now I said, I'm interested to see whether the firm A's performance is as similar to that of firms B's performance, right? Because there are n number of factors, n number of firms that may be associated with a single enterprise, right? But you have taken these two as a sample, right? That's what we were speaking about here. Okay, when we said that two sample study, when this two sample study becomes very, very important here, right? You say that the universe is very ill-defined, a population is relatively very, very large, and I've taken one particular group of sample for the study. I may take one market, I may take one society, I may take one state, right? But there, I'm required to draw a conclusion or a judgment whether this is representing the entire universe or not, right? We need to come out with our argument. Then it is always better for us to go for two sample study, right? We take sample 1 and sample 2. And these two sample units are going to be characterized with few statistical factors. Like, for example, I take mean, right? I take sample 1 and sample 2. I take mean of sample 1, mean of sample 2. I say sample 1 mean is equal to sample 2 mean, right? For example, I say team A and team B. I've taken two teams which are operating in a particular enterprise. I say performance efficiency of team A is as similar to that of performance efficiency of team B. And if this holds good, I can come to a conclusion that all the teams who are operating in that particular enterprise are sharing similar level of efficiency. Right? Most of the time when we are going to be doing a HR related research, we may come across these kind of situations, right? Or you take two branches, two nationalized banks operating in a particular market, right? You say that the performance or the profitability of branch A is similar to that of branch B, and can we come to a conclusion that the performance of all the branches associated with this bank is similar, right? Because it is a fundamental aspect that we need to look at evaluating. Or we may also study in terms of the variance here, right? We will also study the variance. How there is a performance, okay, they say like there are 10 people working in a particular unit, production unit, which is operating in one particular place, and I take another unit which is operating in some other place with the same similar numbers, 10 employees, and I see that the variances in terms of the average performance to the individual performances of unit 1 and unit 2 are similar, right? We say like variance of 1 is equal to variance of 2. We do an ANOVA study there, right? Analysis of variance. We say like F test is going to be done there, okay? So we are trying to come out with our objective arguments, because objective arguments are very important. Okay, I started off telling with you that subjectivity versus objectivity, right? So objectivity is always based on some logical arguments, logical standards, right? We take those standards and then based on the data, whatever we are going to be compiling through our research, we are trying to validate those arguments and provide with subjective evidences to come out with our inferences and interpretations, telling you that these particular standards which are there are well justified, right? Because providing simple statistics, okay, most of the time people ask a question whether hypothesis is very much important for research, right? Most of the time people say like, okay, it is not very much important. They are not trying to tell you that whether the quantitative analysis is very important for you to uphold or amplify your arguments, right? That is a fundamental question that they have in their mind, right? But no research starts without a hypothesis, because we say like every research problem when it is identified, I think day 1 and day 2, okay, you have been they have taken you through different aspects, elements associated with it. Once you identify a research problem, whatever you feel is the tentative solution that you want to provide for that particular research problem is hypothesis, right? So these hypothesis testing can be done using quantitative as well as the qualitative factors, all right? When you are going for this quantitative analysis, we need to be knowing like, okay, how are we going to be testing those statistics? Simple statistics may be there. For example, I may say that there is a strong relationship existing between, like just now I told you, strong relation existing between advertisement expenditure and the profits or the sales earned by the company. Right? Now you come out with a correlation telling that 0.68 is a correlation. Right? Simple statistical inferences will tell you 0.68 exhibits a positive correlation. But in research, what is very important, my friends, is whether can I conclude that this 0.68 is statistically significant for me to conclude that these two have a strong association with each other. Right? You go to the market and you see like many people are buying products. Right? You are interested to see whether branding really influences people's choice or not. Right? Then you're going to be running a cross tabulation. Right? You're going to be putting A into B matrix. You come out with your statistical inferences, and then you're going to be saying that again, this particular I've derived a correlation of 0.67. Right? Then I say that there's a positive correlation. Whether this positive correlation is statistically significant for you to conclude that there is a strong association between this branding and people's choice. That's where hypothesis testing becomes very, very important. That's where we use P statistic, right? We use a parametric test, P test, for testing Karl Pearson's correlation coefficient. Then we compare that with the standard values. Then we are going to be coming out with our arguments that the standard value is greater than the derived value. We accept the null hypothesis. Derived value is greater than the standard value. We reject the null hypothesis. We say we fail to accept the null hypothesis, telling that the correlation is insignificant. And now we can conclude that there is a strong association existing between these two factors. Right? So we always test the statistical significance using hypothesis testing. Now we said like variance here. Okay. I see that the team A's performance in terms of the average sales reported, performance efficiency reported, has a standard deviation or a variance of 21. Team B has a variance of 28. Can we conclude that the team B is better than team A? Or team A is better than team B? But the normal assumption that the people will have when they set the hypothesis is team A's performance is as similar to that of the team B's performance. Right? So then you can go by absolute numbers telling that okay, 28 is more and 21 is less. The standard deviation which is there of team A is less than team B. So hence I conclude that team A performance is better. Right? This can be done, but it is not going to be providing you with substantial evidences for you to prove your argument. Right? This is where further statistical analysis becomes very, very important. Right? Similarly, when you speak about averages, you speak about variance, you speak about the degree of association, the degree of freedom what you have. We have different statistical tools, my friends. What is important is what are we trying to evaluate here? Right from starting, right? What are the attributes? What are the variables we are trying to test? What are the attributes that we are trying to evaluate? What is the type of data that we have used? Whether we have used the appropriate scales, this is very important. Like I told you, should we go for nominal scales, ordinal scales, interval scales, ratio scales? Which is the right statistic? What is the right measurement scale that we need to use? Because when you have a data, you cannot go for a back-end analysis telling that okay, I have a data. Most of the time, okay, most of the researchers, right? Because I may be wrong in placing this particular argument, but my own experience, okay, my own exposure that I have seen, most of the time people say, I have used different statistical tools. I've used SPSS, I've used MOS, I've used R, right? I've done a structure equation modeling. They've done a lot of analysis. It is all an artificial intelligence, my friends, right? So whenever you're going to be giving you, it's a simple system. You give an input, it gives you output. But okay, what exactly is the logical aspect associated behind it? Right? People say like, I don't know. Right? People say like, I have done a Z test in my research. Right? I've done Z test. how did you do your Z test? Now they say like, I have fed in the data into SPSS. It gave me a Z score. I have done my interpretation. How did that calculate Z score? You are given only a sample characteristics. How can you calculate Z there? Because very simple formula says Z is equal to mean minus mu divided by standard deviation of P divided by square root of N. Standard deviation of P divided by square root of N is called standard error. This is a very simple formula I'm telling you, just for your understanding. All right. So what is the standard deviation of P? Right. Just now I just exhibited to you. Standard deviation of P is population. Do you have the population data with you? You don't have population data with you. You have only the sample data. So what you have is standard deviation of S. Do you have a mu here? You don't have mu here. What do you have is standard deviation of a mean of the sample X bar. You have X bar here. Then how did you do Z score? Right. You say like, sir, I did a Z score comparing an evaluation of two samples, sample A and sample B. You ask a question like, okay, what exactly is the logic behind selecting these two samples? Why did you select these two samples? Right, just few minutes back, I gave you an example because my interest is to evaluate how this larger population characteristics can be justified, substantiated with the help of the sample. I'm taking only two samples. Yeah, because I cannot do a population study. I cannot go and do all the study about the SBI branches operating the entire country and entire Asia Pacific region, entire globe. I cannot do a study. But I'm interested to study what exactly is the ability of the SBI to perform their non-performing assets. What is the profitability of the bank? Right. So how can I go and do a study, say like a case study of Shankarghatta, case study of Bangalore, case study of Mandya? Right. So you cannot do a universal characteristic study until unless you specifically define what characteristics, what attributes. Right, this is very, very important, right? Because you should, I'm not telling that, okay, there's nothing wrong in using these models. Absolutely, there's nothing wrong in using models, but what they are. Like, for example, okay, people are going to be using a structure equation model. And structure equation model is going to be giving you a particular number called as factor loading. Right? It's like the factor loading, what is the, and you see like normally see numbers 0.8091, 0.7501. Right? People say, any factor score which is more than 0.75 is a good factor loading and it can be continued for analysis. Okay. Now, how this particular factor was calculated? They say like, okay, there's absolutely no base. Right. There's absolutely no base based on what that particular factors are calculated because it's simply an artificial intelligence. It is running on some simulated platform. Now you say that, okay, I'm going to be calculating convex alpha, I'm going to be calculating variance explained, average variance explained, AVE, right? You give all this. What are you trying to evaluate by the end? You're trying to say that, okay, this particular statistical or the research tool I have used for my research is a good tool. Now, is that what is going to be ending your research with? No, it is not going to be ending your research with because your objective is not to study the validity of the statistical tool or the research tool you have developed. The validity of the research tool has to be studied only during your pilot research. You do a pilot research to validate your tool, telling you that whether this research tool is going to be giving you appropriate base or appropriate responses that can be used for further statistical analysis. Right. So I request all my friends just to go and study the relevance of those particular tools for your research. Most of the time, you're going to be applying a lot of statistical research tools. Most of the time, we don't understand like why are we using that? And we are not doing a pure scientific research, my friends. We are not statisticians. We are not doing statistical research. We are doing a social science research. What is required for the social science research is
Good evening, sir.
provide substantial evidences for whatever arguments that we have, right? For which right appropriate tools are very important. first have a proper knowledge about the statistical tools, right? We have different types. Simple statistical tools are enough. As I said, simple statistical tools are enough for you to derive, provide interpretations. That is enough, right? But what is more important for you is to understand how to further validate them. I told you statistical significance. Statistical significance can be tested using only through the statistical tools, right? I hope that can be done. And now I keep the forum open for a few questions.
Good evening to all, sir. Good evening. Good evening, sir. So it's time up already. If you have any questions, kindly you can put it in the chat box. Within 5 minutes, we can discuss. If you have any questions, kindly ask to sir.
Good evening, Manjunath sir. This is Janardhan.
A very big ocean of aspects to be discussed, but I just try to give a little bit of impetus to understand, like, because whatever we are seeing normally, the mistakes in the due course of research, what people are doing, and we see people are presenting their papers in other places. We really find this aspect, these errors.
Sir, there is one question.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Janardhan sir would like to ask one question. So over to Janardhan sir, please ask. Sir.
Good evening, sir. Manjunath sir, good evening.
Yes, very good evening, sir.
There's a very interesting, a discussion and information. I being a person hailing from literature, I don't understand these things, but still out of my curiosity, I would like to ask you a question. Can we evolve any new statistical tools for the people who are conducting research in banking, as far as how to contain NPA, non-performing assets?
Non-performing assets.
This is for the NPA, non-performing assets.
Okay, sir.
Could we evolve any, statistical tools so that we can reduce NPAs in India at least?
So NPAs in India, you're telling about the macro perspective, sir.
Yes, sir. You may talk about macro or micro, but it is better macro level. At India level, what is happening, you know that.
Yes. Okay, we say like, okay, non-performing assets as a standard. So Reserve Bank of India, as a part of their monetary policy, they always establish some standards in terms of how to securitize, how to provide loans, right? What exactly are the standards that have to be mentioned? How you need to ensure that these loans become very, very productive, right? Developing a particular statistical measure is actually, it may not be very, very appropriate and possible as well, sir, because we may develop some yardsticks to measure whether the loans are performing, non-performing, because there are some standards in terms of regularity, in terms of repayment and other things. But statistical tools for...
Of course, if it is a political decision, academics cannot help it. That is different.
That is there. But a statistical tool as such, it may not be very, very appropriate, sir, because we may say that in terms of the rate, the standards that they have been following in terms of ensuring that these loans are very well securitized, they are going to be assessing the credibility of the borrower, repayment ability of the borrower. Okay, these are some particular parameters, sir. How to convert NPAs into performing assets? Normally, they go for underwriting those loans. There's some recovery agents who take the responsibility of collecting and recovering on behalf of the bank. That's how it works, sir. Like for example, like I like you introduced. Okay, I was working for Auckland Financial Solutions Private Limited, Bangalore, which was primarily West Palm Beach. Okay, it was based on West Palm Beach, Auckland Federal Bank, United States of America. We had a particular system of performing this loan management, especially what we call as hypothesized this one, sir. Loan recovery. Okay, we had different mechanism like bankruptcy management, right? Mortgage, especially this mortgage loans. This entire mortgage loans which are non-performing were taken up by many agencies like Auckland Financial Bank was one. Massachusetts Bank was one. Okay, these people were doing the recovery part of it, filing the case against those defaulters, right? So these kind of mechanisms are
Yeah.
there, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank-
much. I know that it is not exactly related to academic question. It goes beyond academics, especially politicization, all these things are.
It's certainly
Yeah.
something which can
Then
be
how much
certainly-
ever these statistical tools, academic like you evolve also, those people are going to put them into dustbin. I know that is there. But from the perspective of academics, these kinds of questions are very interesting. So
Yes,
that,
sir, yes, sir,
people pay
certainly,
attention to.
certainly.
That was my idea, sir. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Certainly.
sir. Thank you so much. This is the time to end our session. Already we have taken 10 minutes more. I'm extremely sorry all the participants. This is the time to say vote of thanks. I would like to invite Professor Bhavya ma'am to give vote of thanks. Over to Bhavya madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishwanath sir. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Dr. NSM First Aid College, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the resource person of today's session, Dr. Manjunath sir, Associate Professor, Department of Management Studies and Research, Kuvempu University. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and sharing your valuable knowledge with all of us. Thank you so much once again on behalf of management, faculty, and on my personal behalf. Thank you so much, sir. My sincere thanks to all the participants for joining with us today for day 3 session. We are looking forward for the same participation from all our participants in day 4 session also. Thank you all once again. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Thank you one and all.
Thank you very much. Hope that I was in a position to deliver value to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.